The Liberty Launcher, a rocket launcher for the soldier that has a green, patriotic design and would appear to be a weapon based on being a generalist rocket launcher, meaning it has a bit of everything from multiple other rocket launchers. Visually, it looks nice and rugged, and the stats are quite nice too. Okay, here are the stats. The Liberty Launcher has a increased clip size by 25%, which is pretty good. So one extra rocket. Might not seem like much, but it helps out a lot, and you'll see why later. It has an increase to its projectile speed by 40%. You take minus 25% less damage from blast jumping, which is pretty good. And as its only downside, it has a negative 25% damage penalty. Okay. From the blue text, this weapon seems actually really good. A little bit from almost all of Soldier's rocket launchers. Like I stated before. Speed from the direct hit and an extra rocket from the airstrike. And that wonderful added bonus of less damage from rocket jumping, meaning that you'll be able to stay flying in the air for quite some time without dropping too low on health, and that extra rocket opens up a lot of neat opportunities for new jumps. But the damage penalty just really hurts the weapon, and everyone knows that. This one stat changes how a lot of people see the weapon. It goes from a neat and balanced secondary to the stock rocket launcher to completely unusable in the eyes of some players. But is it really all that bad? Okay, to find out, let's see the difference between the Liberty launcher and the stock launcher in damage. At max ramp up, the Liberty launcher does 84 damage, and the stock launcher does 112 at max ramp up, a 25% difference, as the stats say. At max fall off, the Liberty launcher does 36 and the stock does 48, and the base damage of the launchers, the two separate launchers, being Liberty launcher having a base damage base damage of 68, while the stock launcher has a base damage of 90. So, this is accurate to the stats, thankfully. So, it would seem as if it's not worth using the Liberty launcher, but we haven't looked over the overall damage. So, this is accurate to the stats. So, it would seem as if it's not worth using the Liberty launcher. But we haven't looked over the overall damage, meaning how much damage you can do after unloading all the rockets in your clip. Not the reserve ammo, however. Okay, so after all 4 rockets in the stock launcher are used, your base damage would have been 360, if we're just using the base damage, no ramp up, no fall off. Being 90 times 4, obviously that's math, simple. And the Liberty launcher would be 340, which 68 times 5, it's good. It's obviously a 20 damage decrease, but I don't really see that as a deal breaker. I don't consider it as a bad weapon just because it has a decreased damage. The other upsides of the weapon are fantastic. Alright, so, in my opinion, these are some pretty good things to note here. The biggest upside of the weapon is the extra rocket. It's great. It's great. But then you might be asking, wait, but why not just use the airstrike? Well, the airstrike you have to get kills, and once you die, you lose all those rockets. With the Liberty launcher, boom, you just get it right out of the gate. That's great. And the airstrike has a decreased splash damage range, and the Liberty launcher doesn't, so you get to keep all that good splash. You get to keep your splash damage along with that awesome speed boost. It's pretty good. The, I believe, exact speed of the Liberty launcher's rockets is 1,540 hammer units per second? I think that's what it is. I might be wrong. Correct me in the comments, please. but it means it's faster. The rockets are faster than stock, but not faster than direct hit. And we can't forget the decreased amount of damage from rocket jumps. That's just, this alongside with the extra rocket gives you quite the increased amount of time in the air and flying. And your health can stay up while flying, which is pretty good. With the extra health and rockets of the Liberty Launcher, fights that you enter or bomb into, your rocket count is going to be higher than your rocket count would be if you were using stock and went in for a bomb. Along with that, if things get too intense, you can just jump out. Like, you're going to take less damage from the jump, first of all. So if you know you're going to have enough health, like let's say you theoretically have 40 health, you can just jump out. Now, when you land, you're going to need to make sure you don't take fall damage, or hopefully no enemies are around. But you're going to be able to get out. Hopefully. That's the hope. Alright. I'm talking pretty positively about this thing. But, yeah, I cannot go on without talking about that single downside that the weapon has. The 25% decreased damage. This is a real downside, and you'll notice this downside real quick. In 1v1s against enemy soldiers using stock, or the original, you are at a serious disadvantage. They just straight up outdamage you. But the matchup is not impossible to win. If you use the speed and decreased damage from your rocket jumps to your advantage, you can fly above them and bomb them while taking minimal damage. But enemy soldiers aren't the only place where this weapon's downsides really show itself. When fighting higher health enemies or enemies with max overheal, or generally just a large group of healed enemies, things get quite tricky quite fast. You just can't deal enough damage in time to take care of the higher health enemies. Usually, they will be left on single-digit health, making it easy for your team to pick them off, which is good. Engineer buildings aren't that difficult to destroy, but it can get annoying when they park their posteriors right in front of their dispenser and just keep whacking away at their buildings. Yeah, but it isn't impossible. If you can launch enough rockets fast enough, you probably will be able to get it. But, yeah, it's gonna be hard for you. Okay. We are, however, missing an integral part of the soldier's kit, his secondary weapons. None of the soldier's secondary weapons work against the Liberty Launcher, but some of them, oh, they work with it better than others. Oh boy, do some of them work well with it. Alright, let's go over the weapons from the least synergy to weapons with the most synergy. Alright, lowest synergy. The Righteous Bison. This is your worst option if you're attempting to win, or really do anything, actually. But I have noticed that with the decreased damage of the Liberty Launcher, it will leave the enemies on low enough health that you can sneak in that funny Bison shot, or the Bison will just bug out and not kill him. Alright, the Base Jumper. This is just a meh option overall. I mean, you don't get much benefit from the Base Jumper while pairing it with the Liberty Launcher. You definitely can stay in the air longer and pester the enemy team, but when comparing it to the gunboats, this is just outclassed, and you become an incredibly easy target in the air. But I'm not gonna lie, you just become probably the easiest targets to hit. You're just levitating, slowly descending. It's just really easy to hit you. Man treads. Okay. I'm not very good at market gardening. Like, I'm trash. I'm pretty sure I've only ever hit 2 market gardens. Ever. So, yeah. Gotta work on that. But I have seen some crazy stuff with this. So, basically the whole idea with the gunboats and the Liberty Launcher is that you essentially have a mini gunboats from the Liberty Launcher. You can fly while taking minimal damage and still have an extra form of damage when you inevitably miss a garden. Then you can fly out and regain your health, and that kind of stuff. This is a cool pair. I just don't get much out of it. But when it works, it really does work, and people can pull off some incredibly insane stunts. Alright. The battalion's backup. Okay. Hear me out. The battalion's backup needs quite a lot of damage to build. 600 damage. And the boost doesn't really help the Liberty Launcher. I'm not gonna lie. But it does give your team a great boost in defense. But compared to the other options, it just isn't that good. I mean, I'm not saying that any of these weapons are bad paired with it. However, the Liberty Launcher can find much better use of other secondaries. The Battalion's backup is not bad. It's not a bad pair. It's not a bad pair. The 20 extra health is also really good to help keep you flying and fighting. But it just kind of doesn't pair well with it. It's just kind of like basic, you know? A lot of damage is required, and then once you finally pop it, it doesn't help with aggression. Alright. Shotguns. Shotguns are great. Like, really good for the classes that they have on them, especially Soldier. Those situations when you run out of rockets in your clip, or after rocket jumping at your enemies and bombing them, are the perfect time to whip out your secondary and back out, you know, if necessary. But when you have an extra rocket in your clip, the shotguns aren't necessarily good options, but they're not bad. No, most certainly not. But when we compare them to the other options, and counting in that extra rocket, the the extra form of damage from the shotgun kind of just doesn't seem to capitalize on that situational boost, you know, with the extra rocket. But the combos are pretty neat, especially that what is it? It's the combo with the panic attack, I believe. I've seen some pretty neat stuff with that. Okay, gunboats. You already have decreased damage from the rocket jumps, but I do have to say, this here gives you the ability to just be... You just get to no-clip around the map. Like, you just kind of get to no-clip around the map. Yeah, you just get to fly. You take, like, 10 damage, 18 damage, maybe, like, 10... I think it's around, like, 10 or 12 damage from a jump. And then, you know, you can still fight, which is good. But yeah, it's a good option. It's a good option if you just want to solely run with the Liberty Launcher and you want to fly around. Oh, you probably could pair it with the Market Gardener too, which would also be good. But yeah, we've got a few better options coming up real quick. The Conqueror, good, like really good. The Conqueror only takes 480 damage to charge, unlike the other banners, and gives you some really good sustained health. And did I forget to mention that it's great for your team? Like, the only issue I would see with this pair is that your damage is still going to be lower even when you pop the conch, but that extra rocket does allow you to continue to fire off and hit more damage. But I do think it's a good pair. It's just, it doesn't help with the offense. It's good. I mean, like, it does help with offense, but not in the way this last one does. The buff banner. This is the best weapon to pair with the Liberty Launcher, in my opinion. The Liberty Launcher goes from what many would consider a tin can launcher to a weapon of mass destruction. It does take 600 damage to build up, like the battalions, but when it does finally get built up and you pop that thing, you can absolutely shred through groups of enemies with the extra rocket and the faster projectile speed. The mini crits, it's insane. Sadly, I think it's only, it's kind of sad because it only lasts for, I believe, 10 seconds. But 10 seconds can make or break a game. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. Speaking of the projectile speed buff, previously mentioned when talking about the buff banner, the buff does quite a lot for you during combat. And while rocket jumping, obviously, you know, it changes how jumps work. Okay, first, the concept of DPS, meaning damage per second, is the amount of damage a weapon can do in a certain amount of time. The faster the weapon's fire rate, or speed, the more damage you can be putting out in a shorter amount of time. With this being said, the buff speed allows you to distribute damage faster than you could with other rocket launchers, except for the direct hit, because, you know, the direct hit just has a base damage boost and is faster. I, however, think it's great and enjoy using it. And I hope that you, the viewer, will give it a try and see, what works for you. Hopefully, you enjoy watching this video on the Liberty Launcher. It's different from my normal content type, but I want to make more videos with this kind of thing. This kind of thing in mind. Along with some live commentary videos. I enjoyed making those. But I will always like editing videos and making those types of videos. Those videos, the more in-depth editing, I guess you could call it in-depth. It really isn't. It's just really just kind of like simple cuts. It's just that, you know. But it's not going away. It's never going away. It's really fun to make those, and rewatching them is also incredibly fun as well. If you want to see more videos, however, maybe consider subscribing. Maybe. It doesn't really matter to me. If you want to subscribe, go right ahead. If you don't, that's fine. But I do want you to know it helps the channel a lot. Anyways, may God bless you on your adventures through life, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye, y'all. Woo! They were. Oh! Ooh, that air shot!